Hey guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I am your girl, Thlologelo Promise Rampa, and this is Relocate to Australia with Promise. It is the #1 DIY relocation platform. So what I mean by that is if you were looking for information about how you can relocate to Australia from wherever you are in this world and you cannot afford an agent, you are able to do this process yourself. I have done it, as I always say, and it is possible for you to also do for yourself. So if you're looking for content about how you can also do this yourself, then you are at the right channel. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. So as you've seen on my YouTube thumbnail, today I'm going to be discussing regional Australia versus the city. The reason why I've decided to do this section is because I've been having a lot of people asking me, Promise, where should I go? Should I be in the city when I come to Australia, or should I go to a regional area? And I know a lot of people are very nervous about this because they want the best out of the experience when they come to Australia. I'm telling you, relocating, the whole process of relocating is stressful on its own. You don't want to end up in a place where you don't want to be, because when you made that decision to come here, you were not prepared. One thing that I will tell you about me and my husband, when we relocated to Australia, we were like, look, even if they say you're going to live in a cave, as long as it's a cave in Australia, we are going. That's what we did. We don't really care where we're gonna end up. As long as we get a visa to live and stay there, we will make the most out of our experience when we get there. Lucky enough, the visa that we applied for when we applied for our permanent residence, we were nominated for a visa that allows us to stay in Queensland. We can either stay in the city like your Brisbane or Gold Coast if we want to, and we can live in a regional area. The nice thing about such a visa is that you are flexible. You have that option of you living wherever you want to live. We'll talk more about it when I get into the discussions of the permanent residency visa later on. But the thing that I want to tell you is, if you have a visa that allows you to live anywhere, at least you've got that option where you're like, okay, I've tasted the regional area in Australia, I don't really like it, and maybe now I can try out the city and see how it goes. And if you don't like the city, then you can go back to regional again. So that's the nice thing about having a visa that's open, and that's the kind of visa that we have. But there are some people who do then secure permanent residency visas for only regional areas, and the reason why the government has done that is because they're trying to push people into regional areas in order to then develop those places. As we always know, people are always kind of going to be attracted to the city. Regional Australia is able to offer you the life that you're looking for, but honestly, it really does depend on where you are in life. So let's go into the comparison of regional Australia versus the city. Where are my hands? Yes, regional Australia versus the city. So what I'm going to start with is the city. I've not lived in the city, but I have been to the city a number of times. So the cities that I have visited so far in Australia is Brisbane. That was the first one that we experienced, because when we traveled from South Africa, we went from South Africa. So when we traveled from South Africa, we went from South Africa to Dubai to Singapore, and then we came straight to Brisbane. The good thing about then getting to experience Brisbane is that our permanent residency, as I've explained to you guys, is from Queensland. So we got to kind of get the feel of, okay, this is what Brisbane is. So it was very nerve-wracking. I don't think we even experienced anything positive because, it was so stressful. I'll go into a story time about our first day here in Australia sometime later on. So yes, the first city was Brisbane. The second city I went to was Sydney. I spent a month in Sydney, but not like a month straight. It was weekly. How do I put this in English? It was a period of a month, but weekly. Yes, I was traveling to Sydney. I traveled to Sydney for 4 months, 1 week per month. Yes, it's English. So yes, I've spent a month in Sydney. The first 2 weeks of being there, I was with my daughter. It was horrible, so horrible. But it could have been easier if I had like the support of family and all of that. But it's something I'll go into later. But I did not really like the city. It was just too much. It was just really too much for me. We'll go into that. And the third city that I've went to recently is Canberra. I'm going to do a town profiling on Canberra because I did document that. And then the other city that we went to was then your Gold Coast. So Queensland has 2 cities, Gold Coast and Brisbane. We'll go into it when we go into town profiling. So as I said to you guys, when you relocate, the thing is, as I've mentioned, with the Australian government, they're trying to not get a lot of immigrants into the city. The reason being is because they're trying to maybe use the resources that they have with immigrants to kind of draw them to the regional areas for them to develop the place. Just like in any other country, a lot of people, especially immigrants, when they come to a certain country, I think I've experienced that in South Africa, where I come from. A lot of people, when they come into South Africa, they don't want to live in like your Siyabuswa. They don't want to live there. They want to go to like a Pretoria and your Joburg for obvious reasons, opportunities and all of that, we all know. But the good thing about here in Australia is that they are trying to provide services and be able to service regional areas. Even though they're smaller, they're trying to develop regional areas to be livable for people. So that's why they're trying to get them visas that are going to open up, opportunities in a regional area. So when looking at the pros and cons of the city, so let's start with the good ones, the pros. With the pros, obviously, there are more jobs in the city. There are more job opportunities in the city. You're able to get a job much more easier, I guess. I've not really experienced this because for me, finding a job was quite easy because social work is very high in demand here in Australia. So you can literally go work anywhere, any day you want. Also with vets as well, with my husband, we can just decide today, we don't like this place, let's go somewhere else. We're gonna get a job really quickly because social work and vets are very high in demand. That's why I'm like, hey, if you're a social worker or you're a vet, come decide. It's lit. It's very lit. There are jobs everywhere. And for me, it's a very big thing coming from unemployment after 3 years of unemployment and coming here where it's much more, where you even get companies calling you and be like, promise, we've got this position for you here. Don't you want to move? You're like, leave me. I've bought a house. Leave me. So you do get people who then, even with my husband as well, he gets like emails a lot of times that people are like, oh, we've got this practice here. We're looking for people because they don't have enough social workers and enough vets. So if your qualifications are in the priority list, trust me, they are looking for your kind of skills. So that's why I'm saying there are opportunities this side. So yes, there are more jobs obviously in the city, but if you are a person that is very skilled and part of the priority list where it's like, yeah, your skill is something that we need in a certain area, then it is going to be much more easier for you to get a job, even if you're in a regional place or the city. But the other thing is, even regional areas have a lot more job opportunities. What I think in my head is, if people don't want to go to regional areas, it means that there are then positions in regional areas. And one of the things that I have found here in Australia, a lot of people that kind of complain about unemployment are people that are struggling with the necessary skill for whatever that is needed there. So a lot of people that will then go to the city who I think are Australians are people that would not have like a specific skill through maybe education or higher level training. Then they don't have those skills, which is going to be then harder for them to secure specialized type of skills, like where it's like, okay, this one you can only get in with this kind of paperwork. So those are the kind of people that will struggle to get jobs in your regional area, but then they would be okay in a city. But for people who are skilled, and I believe a lot of immigrants would then be skilled, unless maybe you came through, what do they call this? Humanitarian, yes, you're a refugee, or maybe you came with your partner and you're not that skilled. Maybe it might be difficult for you. However, there are always jobs everywhere. Like as I mentioned, like your Coles and your supermarkets, and they pay really well. So you don't really have to look. Australia has jobs. Wherever you are in Australia, there are always job opportunities for you. You just need to get yourself in a position where you're able to locate them. And as long as you've got working rights and you can stay here for as long as you can, then you're good to go. In the city, there are more transport options. So, okay, let me put it like this. Where I'm staying, obviously, it's a regional area, but we do have access to a bus. We do have access to like buses. We do have access to taxis. Here, they don't use Siaya. They don't use Quantum and Siaya and Iveco like that, where people are inside all of them together. No, they use metered taxis. So it's one of those things you have to get used to, where it's like, oh, okay, if it is like a Siaya or a Iveco, like these mini buses, then it's either like it's still part of like the metered taxi group. You just have to hire it and request something bigger. But then there's no this thing of like how in South Africa where you just do like this and then taxi stops and you get 15 people inside and you go in. No, you kind of like have to call and arrange that. It's like Uber. I'm from the village, guys. We don't have an Uber. We don't have metered taxis in Siyabuswa. We don't have that, okay? And that's why I'm saying being in a regional area is not too bad here in Australia, because you can be in a regional area and still get a meter taxi. That's good enough for me. The other thing, obviously, with being in the city, you have access to major airports, like the big ones, like the ones that fly out to wherever, whenever. In regional areas, you have more smaller airports, but they're still there. The good thing is, even if it's a regional area, there is still an airport. For me, that's a big flex. Coming from a village, that is a big, big thing, because I'm like, how can a regional area have an airport? But Australia has so many airports. You can literally air travel at any point in time you want. But in the regional area, it's much more different, because it's much more, it's a bit difficult getting direct flights. That's the only problem about using an airport in a regional area, is that you don't really get access to direct flights. But if you are living in the city, it's much more easier for you to get direct flights anyway. But the main thing is, you do have an airport. So if you do decide to buy a jet, you have somewhere to park it. Obviously with the city, as everybody knows, there are more shops, a lot of more retail. I'm not really a shopping person. I'm not really a brand person, clothing person. So for me, it's not really a big thing. But if you're a person that really loves being out there, shopping, restaurants, eating out, dining out, and doing all those kind of things, having a huge social life, clubbing, the city will definitely be for you. In a regional area, obviously, you will not have a lot of shops. There's some shops that come and go. If you're needing something, sometimes you might not even find it. But that's why we have online shopping. So if you can live in a regional area and do online shopping. The nice thing about Australia is that there's a level of trustworthiness here. So even if you order something online, you are kind of guaranteed that you're going to get it. I've not experienced not getting anything that I've ordered, because now I know that people can also buy groceries online and it can be delivered to their houses. I'm like, oh, ShopRite does not deliver. In Siyabuswa, ShopRite and Pick and Pay, they don't deliver. So if you're in a regional area and you can still do your shopping online and it can be delivered to you, then why go to the city? But the other thing is, if you're living in the city and you cannot afford that life, you can still have access to it, but not really, because you can't afford to eat there. So it just depends on where you are in life, your pocket at that point in time, and what you want in life. But as an immigrant, I know when you're starting off, especially when you're looking at the conversion of the rand to the dollar, living in the city is going to be harsh. I'm telling you, it's going to be harsh, unless if your pocket when you're in South Africa is good enough, because the conversion, you are going to cry. Yeah, rent to the dollar. Rent to the dollar. Painful reality. So when you come then to Australia, it's up to you to decide, okay, what do I want? Do I want to settle as quick as possible, or it will be survival of the fittest? I will soldier on until I get myself right. So it really depends on where you are in life and what you are prepared to sacrifice and do with your life when you get here. What we did, me and my husband, when we decided on the regional area we wanted to be in, when we initially came to Australia, we were in Grafton. Grafton is about 7 or 8 hours to Sydney. That was too far. So we were like, okay, when we settle in Queensland, we'll look for a place that's not in the city, but not too far away from the city. And that's how we ended up where we are right now. So if you want to go to the city, it's like about a 3-hour drive. So that's all good. If you want to fly there, we can always go to our regional airport. It's about a 20-minute drive to the airport here in Hervey Bay. And then we can always fly to Brisbane if you want to. Yeah, that's what we did when we decided to come here. We did not want to live somewhere that's going to be too far away from the city, should we need anything in the city. But again, if we wanted to, we could have lived in the city because our visa allows us to. But we were like, honey, no. The other good thing about being in the city, you have easy access to these big hospitals, like your academic hospitals. Is it academic hospitals? Yes, the big ones where research is done and you have all the new technology and yada, 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 and all those things. You have easy access to that because you will then be in the city. But the good thing about being in Australia, if you find yourself in a regional area and they do not have the resources to help you where you are, they will fly you to the city. They will fly you to the city for you to be able to access the support that you need there. So, man, I can take that any day because, as I always say, from the village where I come from, you being airlifted anywhere in your life is not a reality. So research has shown that, obviously, I think this is a worldwide thing. I'm not too sure about other countries. I've not been to other countries, so I don't know. But there's always this belief that if you are in the city, you get a higher salary. But the thing is, again, you can get a higher salary, but if the expenses are too high and your money management skills are not good, my friend, it's going to be difficult. You can still get a higher salary, but if your spending habits are horrible, you're as good as somebody who's just not getting paid. That's just me. But the thing that I've noticed about being in Australia is that salaries here are high anyway. It depends on what your definition of high is. Because me, I'm still comparing this thing to the rand and the dollar. So for me, when I see a salary, I'm like, because I convert it in my head. I'm like, what? This is almost $1,000,000. It depends on you. There are really good high-paying jobs in regional areas here in Australia. So it really depends on what you like. But the other thing, in my head, this is what I think. You can get a salary, like a good salary living in a regional area, and you don't spend your money on frivolous things, right? So it means that you're able to save your money. So if you're living in a regional area, chances of you saving your money probably higher. I don't know. I've not lived in a city. The only time I've ever lived in a city was when I was still in South Africa. I was in Joburg. Trust me, I was a student for 5 years doing my undergrad and then my master's. I was as broke as a mother, and money management skills. You can't have money management skills when you don't have the money. So I don't know. Like, I never really lived the city life when I was in Johannesburg. I can't really say. I don't really have that experience of living in the city. There are probably I believe there are a lot of people that do manage, to live in the city with the salaries that they're getting, pay bills, still save. You people, y'all need a trophy, and you need to tell us how y'all doing it, because you're doing something good for you to survive in the city. A lot of people in the city sometimes struggle because trying to be disciplined and say, okay, I'm not going to get involved in this whole noise because I know what I need to get out of my money. Those people are very strong. The other thing here in Australia, as you guys know, I love any place where I can get a free activity. That's just me. Anything that's free, if you want to kidnap me, just tell me this thing is free and I'm going to be at your house. So here in Australia, if you're in the city, you have access to a lot more free stuff. But the other thing is, though, because then the cities are so populated, that's why they need a lot more. But if you're in a regional area, chances where you can go to a park and you get to enjoy it alone for as long as you want are maximum. You can always go somewhere and the park will be empty and your kids can play and you can be on your book reading. But in the city, that would be different because there are a lot more people there. I remember when we went to Brisbane this one time, we went to this water park. It was so big. It was free. And we really had so much fun, but there was just a lot of people. And I'm like, child, I gotta keep my eyes on my kids. The other thing about being in the city, there's more culture, there's more diversity. You get to meet a whole lot of people. That's if you're open to it. I know they say Melbourne is very big on culture. I would love to one day experience it. If I do go to Melbourne one day, you're gonna know about it. There's a lot more culture and a lot more people for you to see there. When you're in a regional area, you don't really get to see a lot of people, again, because of population size. Because I'm in a regional area, I don't really get to see a lot of Black African people here. It's only just a few. But when you're in the city, you get to meet a whole lot of Black African people. And most of the times we greet each other, especially when you're in a regional area, we greet each other and we actually talk to each other. But in the city, I'm not too sure if people are able to do that. But I think also there's a lot of opportunity for you to meet people from where you come from, and you kind of build your own community when you're in the city. I think I've seen a lot of people do that on your Instagram and Facebook, where they gather from, like, let's say, for example, sisters from Zimbabwe, sisters from South Africa, yada, 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 all those kind of things. And then you can gather and they can have like social gatherings. They can travel towards a certain location because they're all in the city, close proximities. But for me personally, I've not yet really experienced a lot of Black South Africans where I live. I know of a lot of Zimbabwean people and a lot of Nigerians where I'm staying. So the thing is, when you go to the city, then you get to meet a whole range of people. The thing that I don't like about the city, me personally, oh my God, the overpopulation. Oh, I can't. The traffic. Oh, in a regional area, the good thing is, even if you leave home 10 minutes before you can still make it to work. In the city, for me, I just think about all the hours I will be wasting in traffic. Imagine in my day, I have to budget 2 hours to just commute, or 3 hours. Some people, it can be even 5 hours for them to commute in a day. How are you going to chase your dreams when you are spending 5 full hours commuting. But yeah, if you're a person that is able to then do that and have it on lockdown, then you are fine. You can be in the city. But me, the traffic, I can't deal. Ooh, I can't. I'd be that one road raging. The other thing, as we know about cities, it can be unsafe. In Australia, their definition of unsafe is very different to our definition of unsafe in South Africa. For obvious reasons, we've got a very high crime rate in South Africa. Here they also do have crime because anywhere where people gather, someone's gonna be a crook. Someone's just gonna steal something. That's just human nature. Wherever you are in this world, there is crime everywhere. But here, crime is very different. When people are complaining about crime here, I'm like, ooh, I can that one any day. Any day. That one, it ain't got no violence in it. With people here, when they complain about crime, I'm like, you don't know crime. you don't know crime. Appreciate this crime. Because there are some people experiencing crime for reals. For reals. But not to say that they're not experiencing crime. They are also experiencing crime. It's a bad thing because something gets taken away from you. It's very traumatic. But yeah, man, it's not as horrible as other places where, crime is bad. So there is obviously more crime in the cities, as statistics have shown all over the world, where there's a lot more population, and in the city there are higher crime rates to regional areas. So in regional areas, people here leave their cars unlocked, and they're still complaining about, why did you leave your car unlocked when somebody takes a purse or something like that? I'm like, wait. Did you just say you left your car unlocked outside the yard with your wallet? Maramuswena, you want to get stolen from. There are some places where people don't even lock their house doors, and I'm like, hey, promise, why are you not a criminal? Promise, see, why are you not a criminal? Because I'm like, these people are unicorns. And a lot of people like here in Australia, that's why I'm saying their level of crime is very different to where we come from as Africans, because here a lot of people don't even have jarata. What is jarata in English? Fencing. They don't even have like electric fences and all of that in their houses. Like some houses are just, it can be a house and a house and a house, like your estates where there's no fence or anything. All the neighbors can see each other. And I'm like, the only time you experience that is in a secured complex in South Africa. Secured. There's like a security guard there, intercom, what. That's where you can see that. But wherever you go, everybody is like fenced. There are electric fences and hey, it's hectic. But here, no. People are just free. Some people do have cameras in their houses, so they will then use that as security. But your yard can literally be bare. Like there's no gate. There's no gate. I'm like, how do you not have a gate, Guaco? How do you not have a gate? When I came to Australia and I realized that you can live in your house and not have a gate, I'm like, yo. Obviously, in the city with a lot of people, overpopulation, there's not much space. You don't really have a lot of space, especially when you look at buying a house. Like blocks of land in cities are so expensive. The good thing about being in a regional area is that you're able to have that choice of, I want a bigger block of land or I just want a small one. Your preference, and I'm willing to pay for it. So yeah, in the city there's not much space, so you get these little blocks of land. But then again, it depends on where you are in life and what you're looking for. If you don't want a busy house or a house that's gonna just need you to work on it, then living in the city would be fine. But if you're a person that would enjoy a block of land, have a shed, have your kids play areas and all of that, and things in your yard, then you can have that. The other thing about being in a regional area, you're able to buy like a huge block of land where you can have your cows and your animals and your house and your sheds and all of that. There's a lot that you can do here in Australia. I'll try and do a video on housing here in Australia, renting and buying, so that you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Yes, the other thing about being in the city, there's more of a nightlife. In a regional area, you don't really get much of a nightlife. A lot of people always complain about not being able to have clubs. Here they do. In regional areas, they have more of like pubs and bars. They don't really have clubs. But in the city, you can then get your clubs. But then again, it depends on where you are in life. So if you're a person that has a family and you're over your club life, then the regional area will be fine for you. But if you're still a person that still wants to socialize like that, then maybe going to the city would be for you. But then again, you have to be very mindful of your pocket and what you can afford, because you don't want to come here and spend all your money on a clubbing. Because the other thing, clubbing here in Australia is expensive. Alcohol is expensive here. So it's not something that you can just do every weekend like where we come from. It would be very sad if you find yourself living in a regional area, but you still want that club life and the noise, and you still got that stage you want, because you don't have children, or you have children but you're able to still maintain that kind of lifestyle. It would be very sad, because you would then have to travel either to the city or somewhere where you can access a club. So you have to think about traveling money, if you need a hotel, if you don't need a hotel and you've got friends there, but still food, because it's almost like a trip. You've traveled out of where you're living. So all those kind of things, and also the alcohol and the eating out, so there's a lot of cost that will go into it if you are living in a regional area and you still want kind of like some aspects of a city life. So that's where you'll get stuck, because you're going to be kind of in between lives, and being in between lives can be very expensive, trust me. So you need to kind of resolve it within you to say, okay, fine, I'm fine with being in a regional area, or I'm not fine, and this is what I'll do to work my way up there. So you really do need to resolve it within you and make that decision to say, this is something I can afford, this is something I can do, or this is something I can't do. But one thing that you need to do, number one, is to be honest with yourself about where you are and where you're going. Because once you've got that on lockdown, you are fine. The last thing is, oh my God, kangaroos. Kangaroos can be a wonder to look at. They can be beautiful. They can be very interesting animals, but those things are dangerous. Number one, they can kick you. Number two, if your car hits a kangaroo, sometimes your car can get totaled. It's like, bye, you're done. You can't drive this thing anymore. So if you're in a regional area, you get to see a lot of kangaroos. Where I live, I see a lot of kangaroos. I think I see kangaroos almost on a daily basis, because sometimes they come into my yard. Sometimes when you're driving, you will see them all over the place. But when you go to like your deep rural areas, it is so dangerous, because they can be on the road when you're driving, and it's very dangerous. So in being in the city, obviously, kangaroos, you don't find a lot of kangaroos in your city. If you would find a kangaroo, it's probably in a zoo. So that's that for me today. So if you are still conflicted about whether you want to live in a regional area or the city, if you cannot resolve it within you, all I'll just say to you is just come to Australia, give it a try, experience the city, experience the regional area, and you'll make the decision when you come here. As I said, it really does depend on where you are in life, what your life structure is, if you have children, if you've got a wife, if you're still a young person looking to socialize with people, or you're just wandering around the world lost. But then again, you have to also be very mindful of the size of your pocket. If you cannot afford to be in the city, don't force. You make your life what you want it to be. So if you want it to be miserable, you're going to make sure it is miserable. You're going to contribute to that. But if you want your life to be great and you want to have great life experiences, you make it wherever you are. Even if you're in a cave, even if you are in the township, even if wherever you are in this world, for as long as you want the life that you want for yourself, you can literally create it either in your head or in real life. So it is up to you what you want in your life. If it is the city, if it is the regional area, you just have to resolve it within you and make the decision. I hope this episode was helpful to you guys. And we'll go into other things in a deeper level later on with other videos. But for now, this is a wrap. I love you so much for watching. Thank you. And I'll see you again next week.